Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from the World Youth Under 18 Championship. It's Praggnanandhaa versus India's 61st Grandmaster Iniyan P, and well, it's a really interesting game, and we are enjoying the games of the Isle of Man chess tournament. But we also have to mention this as it is quite an achievement for young Pragu. So without further ado, let's just check it out. It's a 77-player Swiss tournament. So Praggnanandhaa is only 14 years old and he's competing in the Under 18 World Youth Championship. So really exciting. The tournament is taking place in Mumbai, India, and the time control is 90 minutes per player. And after 40 moves, you of course reach time control, and you are awarded additional 30 minutes. Plus, you get 30 seconds increment starting from move 1. So without further ado, let's check it out. Praggnanandhaa with the white pieces opens with e4. With d6, Iniyan goes for the Pirc Defense, and now d4. With g6, and now knight to f3. Bishop to g7, and now bishop to c4. So all fairly standard. With a6, castles by Praggnanandhaa, and now knight to f6. And here is something that I want to mention. Here I would say, okay, there is a game where e6 was played, there is also a game where b5 was played, but knight to f6 is a new move in the position, and as of move 5, we have a completely new game. So it's something I would usually say, but something happened in the previous video where I mentioned that it's a new game as of move this, and someone mentioned in the comments that it's actually not, that a few more moves were played and are known. So I decided to check out if the database I was using so far was correct. Maybe, you know, it doesn't contain all the games. So I paid $5 for access to the official chess-based database, where they claim to be the biggest database for chess games in the world. And I decided to put this to a test. So in the database I was using so far, knight to f6 is a new move in the position, but in the chess-based database there are a few more moves played. For example, queen to e2. This is how the game continued. This is what Pragu played. He's preparing e5, and he doesn't want the queen here. So if there's a trade in the center, he doesn't have to trade queens. We have castles by black. Sorry about that. Castles by black, and now e5. Here, of course, black doesn't want to trade. With knight back to e8, and h3 now by Pragu. And here, knight to c6 is a known move in the chess-based database, but it is only as of move c6 that we have a completely new game. However, c6 is a move that was played in knight to c6 instead of c6 was a move that was played in two games between 2100 players, and there is one game where a 2500 player played against a 1900 player. So they are not how to put it, notable games from top tier tournaments. So I paid $5, and I will now have access to the chess-based database for a month. So I will also be using both of my databases to you know, reference the moves, but I don't think if it doesn't show itself useful, I will go back to using my old database, because even if it's not a new move, as I usually say in the previous videos, I would usually say only use references from notable games, from top tier tournaments, and from really strong grandmasters. But as I do have access to it now, I will also be referencing it. So just wanted to mention that, and thank you for mentioning it in the previous video, that the database may not be fully correct. But okay, c6, and now it is definitely as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. We have rook to e1 by Pragu, continuing development, and now knight to c7. With knight b to d2 by Praggnanandhaa, and now you could go for b5 here, pushing the bishop back. Bishop to e6 is an interesting idea, but here we have knight to d7, allowing Pragu to go for a very interesting pawn push in the center, of course, which is e6. This is what Pragu does. With f captures, bishop captures with check, king to h8, and now bishop back to b3, opening up an attack towards the e7 pawn, and here black plays e6. Now here's the question, can the e6 pawn be captured? Not really. If you could capture it, it would be great, but if you capture it rook e8, and how do you stop black from capturing it? You could go queen c4, but then just d5, or even better, knight to b6, opening up an attack towards the bishop, and also the queen on c4. Queen would have to move, and then you just pick up the piece. So you cannot capture the pawn here. With knight to c4 by Pragu, the d6 pawn is under attack, so either the knight moves or you push it to d5. Iniyan pushes it to d5, and now we have bishop to g5 first. Attacking the queen here. Bishop blocks bishop blocks the attack on the queen. Bishop captures, queen captures, and only now knight to e5, where there's no bishop to challenge the knight here. And if this knight captures it, then just this knight takes its place, and well, we do have a monster knight in the center of the board. So knight to b5, attacking the d4 pawn, and now a4, pushing the knight back. Remaneuvering the knight to d6, from where it can come to e4, but it can't stay on e4 very long, as white will definitely activate the bishop at some point. He will play c3, bishop to c2, and the knight will not have a very safe outpost on e4. So c3 by Praggo, you have to activate this bishop this way. And now, as I said, knight to e4 isn't really doing anything since bishop is coming to c2, a5 by black. With bishop to c2 by Praggnanandhaa, and now comes queen to g7. With h4, and now knight to f5. That's an excellent knight, and if white wants to get rid of it, you will either have to give up your very strong light square bishop or push g4, which at the moment could be a too much weakening of the king's side. So here, knight back to d3. This knight is now coming to f4, from where it can help out with the attack of the backwards e6 pawn. With knight to f6, and here just knight to f4 as planned. With queen to c7, grabbing hold of the e5 square, and now comes knight to e5. So if you look at this position, even before knight to e5, here the knight on f4 is under attack. And how do you defend it? There are a few moves you could try, like g3 right away, but Praggnanandhaa decides to defend his knight with a tactic. He played, not a tactic, but with an idea. He plays knight to e5. Now the queen cannot capture on f4, but also the knight is no longer guarding the h4 pawn. So can Iniyan capture the h4 pawn? Well, he kind of can, and he also can't. He decided to capture it, but other than that, what move is there? How do you further develop the queen? Where are these knights going? What's the rook on f8 doing? This bishop doesn't really have a bright future, and unless the bishop gets a bright future, this rook really has no good square. So here, knight captures on h4, grabbing a pawn, and now Praggo goes g3, pushes the knight back, and now king to g2, and now by giving up this pawn, he gets the semi-open h-file to use for his attack. With g5, attacking the knight, knight to g6 check, giving up the two knights for this rook on f8 doesn't really do anything. Black will very easily defend against all the threats along the h-file, so just knight to h5. Here Praggo wants knight captures, queen captures, and after the queen comes to help out with the defense, now rook to h1. It's just a very ugly position for black. You still have problems developing. Bishop d7, if you want to go for bishop to e8, just rook h2. You will double up rooks on the h file. Bishop e8, you will bring the queen back. And now this rook is coming to h1, and it will be very hard for black to keep on defending this. So after knight h5, Iniyan prevents this exchange. He goes knight to e8, and now rook to h1. Now Praggo is preparing to double up rooks along the h file. King to g8, you don't want your king on the same file as the rooks. Knight to g6 will come at some point after, of course, the knight from h5 moves. So king to g8, but now knight to g4 with some tricky ideas of capturing on f5 and followed by knight to h6 check. So what do you play here? How do you defend this? You could go back with the king. That's just admitting your previous move was a bad one, and you didn't really have all that much to play on the previous move either. So here black continues with c5. You know, it is a principled idea. When your opponent is attacking on the king side, you should strike in the center. But here it's just a bit too slow. Queen to d2 by Praggo, going after the g5 pawn. Iniyan defends it, queen to d8, and now comes rook 8 to e1, putting the rook to the semi-open e-file, going for that weakness that is the e6 pawn. We have knight e to g7, now offering a trade. Sorry, not knight f to g7, knight e to g7, offering a trade. And here Praggo welcomes this trade with knight captures, king captures, and now rook to h5. Preparing to double rooks, but also with a double attack against the g5 pawn. So Iniyan defends it, h6, and now just rook e to h1. With a triple attack on the h6 pawn, we have rook to h8 defending it, and now queen to e2, going for this queen to e5 check. This will greatly improve the activity of the queen. So Iniyan defends it, queen to c7, and now comes, well, everything is now set in motion. I don't even have to tell you what Pragg played now. There's a triple attack on the h6 pawn. There's also a triple defense towards the h6 pawn. So here Pragg just removed one of the defenders, as now everything in the position is nicely set. Bishop captures on f5. Congratulations on finding that. I know you all saw it. E captures on f5, and now knight captures on h6, just grabbing that pawn. And now with the h file fully open, there really isn't all that much to do with king to g6. But now white is completely winning, so feel free to pause the video and try to find the quickest way to victory for white. While I give you a couple of seconds, no need to discuss your family over dinner on this one. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the easiest path to victory. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight to f7. Just opening up an attack towards the rook. So now, if king captures, you will just capture this rook. When this rook lands on h7, it's game over. And if you don't, after this knight to f7 move, I also want to mention that after knight to f7, Iniyan resigned the game, and Pragg won in a very nice 38-move miniature. And if, of course, you go for rook captures here, just queen captures on h5 with check, also guards the knight, king f6, queen h8 check. Now if king captures, just rook h7 will easily be winning, and if king e6, you'll go queen e8 check, queen blocks, and now rook to h8 is mate, because the pawn covers this square and there is nowhere to go. So really an awesome game by young Pragg, taking down the under 18 World Youth Championship, being 14 years old himself, 14 years young himself, which is very impressive and quite an achievement. Definitely a bright future to young Pragg. And it really, this game just showed how powerful he is with the white pieces. Black had no counterplay at all. Okay, it's never easy to play the Pirc Defense against a very strong grandmaster, but here it just seemed a bit too easy. How Pragg completely tied down black's pieces. This bishop and rook never saw the light of day, and even if you gave black, I think even if you gave black like 3 moves in a row, it wouldn't be enough to make it count. So really exciting. Praggnanandhaa wins it with 9 out of 11, so without a single loss, and he claims it with sole first. Second place was 8.5 points, so really just crushing the field. A wonderful achievement, and I offer my congratulations to young Pragg on being such a great player. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Peter Schachtel for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Isle of Man chess tournament, checking up on your suggestions, such as this one here, and of course checking up on everything that happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.